begin on the second line down at the top of the Amud. We will continue the halacha of our previous Mishnah, which we were discussing these items that Yoitzi Isha, a woman's allowed to go out with Rosh Hashanah, and we continue on some of those items. Ashir's co-sponsor by Kazach and Yecheskel, Torah Anytime, Daf Yomi, and the Olam on Zoom joining us this morning. Some tzveitimah. Some ideas we're going to speak about in today's daf are items that one may go out with, like we said on Shabbos Kodesh. And some of them are regarding a wad in the ear or on the foot. Additionally, a machlek is regarding wearing false gold teeth and how that relates to silver teeth. Additionally, some therapeutic characteristics that apply to a coin specifically, as we're going to see on the wound. Why specifically would they use a coin? Additionally, three practices that Avud Shmuel is very careful about with his daughters, and last of which Shmuel, his son, may not agree with. Additionally, about using stones, nuts, and coins as buttons and wearing them in public. Additionally, the halacha that comes up a lot in this Masechta, rabbinically, one may not carry from a Carmelist, not to Rosh Hashanah, not to Rosh Hashanah. It's a rabbinic domain that has similar characteristics to both of them, so we give it a rabbinic violation of Haitzah and Shabbos. Additionally, the halachas as they relate to a mayan and a mikveh as they purify a person, there's actually two different types of purification bodies of water, and we'll see in today's daf a very important distinction, differentiation between if it's a spring, natural springs, or a mikveh, which is a gathered body of water. Additionally, the term of what's called harama, which is a halachic loophole to circumvent violating an isser, which may be problematic in halacha. So we begin the current daf samachem and al, the second line down at the top of the Amud, which these are halacha lamaises actually, which are very practical in some form or manner. We said that a woman is allowed to go out with ubemoich, and we have many different applications of this moich, which is a wad of cloth. She could go out with it ubemoich sheba azna, which she has it in her ear, as we said in the Mishnah, because if you have wax in the ear or whatever, for some reason you want to have that wad in the ear. So Tani Rami Bar Yecheskel, he qualifies, he quotes a brisa. He says, "V'husha kasha ba'azna." This is only, however, if it's tied onto her ear. If not, it might fall out, and one might come to carry it, and therefore violate the laws of Eitzah. So therefore, as long as it's tied in the ear, then that's the halacha the Mishnah says permitted. So to another halacha l'maisu said in the Mishnah, "B'meichshe b'sandala." This happens a lot with people where they have shoes and they have sandals, and they want to have, for comfort, they want to have a wad, an insole, something that makes it comfortable. You're allowed to go out with that in the sandals. It's not a violation of Eitzah. But Tani Rambei Cheskel, again, Busha Kashla b'sandala. As long as it's tied into the sandal, because or else it might come to fall out, you might come to carry that thing. As long as it's tied on, it's okay. Now, the third item mentioned, which is also b'moich, which is actually in the laws of Nida, well known as the term of a moich, but here we're talking about it in a different context. If a woman goes and makes a sanitary napkin, a pad for her menses when she has the menstrual blood, so that also she can go out with it on Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah. Now, says the Gemara, Savar Rami Bar Chama Lamemis, Rami Bar Chama thought to say, like Rami Bar Yecheskel had taught in the brisa previously regarding all the other mice, all the other wads of cotton, there's only if it's tied onto her between her thighs. Again, that it shouldn't fall, because if it falls, you might come to carry it. On that, Rabbi says no, and that's halach l'maisa. Even if this sanitary napkin is not tied onto her body, it's okay. She go out to Rosh Hashanah. Why? Keeping the moist, since it's disgusting, it's repulsive, it has this dam nida. So la'as la'tuya, she's not going to come to carry it. If it falls out, she's going to leave it on the ground. She's not going to come to carry it, and because of that, there's no concern. Now, says, but let's say asla beis yad. Let's say for this moich, for this wad of cloth, like a lot of times they have these types of things, that it has a handle to that cloth. Now, what's the halacha? Would it be forbidden? Because maybe she might come to carry it with her hands. Because it's not disgusting because you have the handle to hold it on. Yeah, the pad itself is disgusting. But the handle is not. Maybe that would be permitted. That Amalei said to him, no, still mutter, it's still permitted. We don't say that it's not disgusting. But even when a handle is disgusting, if it falls out, she's not going to carry it. And therefore, again, the sanitary napkin, even if it's not tied on, it's still going to be permitted to take it out into Rosh Hashanah. And now we said we learned Amr of Nachman Bar Oishya, Amr of Yechon, says Asla Beis Yad. Even if there's a handle made for that sanitary napkin, mutter, it's going to be permitted. Now, a halacha related to this of the Meich Sheba Azna Shema Sandala, which we said has to be tied on. The Gemara brings the following story that qualifies and clarifies this halacha. Rabbi Yechanan Nafik Behula Bei Midrasha. Rabbi Yechanan went out with a wad of cloth in his ear because he was elderly and he had a lot of earwax, and so he had it in his ear, and he went like that to the Beis Medrash through the street. And his colleagues all disagree with him because he didn't tie it into his ears and he went out like that to Rosh Hashanah. Similarly, Rabbi Yanai nafik b'le karmelis. Rabbi Yanai went out like that with the thing in his ear to a karmelis. Like we mentioned, that's a rabbinic domain which is generally forbidden. And his whole generation disagree with him. How are you going out without a tie? Now the Gemara asked on Rabbi Yechon. But Tani Rami Bayichas, we quoted before, a brisa that says, "V'husha kasher lo ba'azna." A woman can only go out with this wad in the ear, only if it's tied on. How did Rabbi Yechon go out without it tied onto his ear? Says Gemara Leikash, not difficult. Of course, there's another qualification that makes it mutter. This that we said that of Rabbi Yechanan, that he went out with it not tied, is the mahadik. It was tightly pressed inside his ear. If it's pushed in tight, if it's tucked in tightly, then you don't need to tie it on because it's not going to fall out. But this that we said from Rabbi Bayichaskel is the loy mahadik. If it's not tightly in, and you don't tie it on, then it's going to fall out, and then you might come to carry. That's what we said forbidden. And therefore, again, it's either tied or tucked in tightly that is going to be permitted according to Rabbi Yechon. Now, continue halacha of the Mishnah. We had other things that a woman could go out with to Rosh Hashanah. We said bepilpul with some type of peppercorn for bad breath, or begalgal melech, or clump of salt, which the Gemara explains. What is the utility of these things? Why did I consider masa? Why is it not carrying? Because it's necessary for the person. The pilpul, this peppers, l'reich hapes, for bad breath. Galgal melech, and this clump of salt is l'dershuni, which Rashi explains some type of a tooth ailment, and therefore it's considered a necessity, human necessity, therefore that's not considered carrying it. On Shabbos itself, you can't put it in initially. There's two interpretations why, but if it's from before Shabbos, the halacha actually allows one to go out with it in their mouth on Shabbos. Now, so too the Mishnah continued, and anything that she puts into her mouth is also permitted. Well, what's things that are generally put into a woman's mouth that's not considered a masa? It's sangvila, and like Rashi says, gingerai, which is ginger, or inami, or dertsuna, which is cinnamon, which is cinnamon. These are things that are permitted for a woman to go out with on Shabbos. It's not considered a masa. The next thing we mentioned in the Mishnah was shein tesebes, a false tooth, shein shel zav, which according to one of Rashi's interpretation, it's one case. Which, what type of tooth, false tooth that we're talking about? We're talking about a golden tooth. So that's where the machlek is between Rebbe and the Chacham. Rebbe says it's permitted. Chacham, the sages say it's forbidden. Now, Rebbe Zeri qualifies, says, we didn't learn that the Chacham say it's forbidden. That's Ela Shel Zav. Only if it's a golden tooth, because that looks different than all other teeth. And maybe they're going to embarrass her. She's going to come to take it out and says, "What? Why gold? No." And she's going to come to carry the lamas and shus her out. Avol b'shal kesef. But if it's a silver tooth, which silver looks very similar to the other teeth, then the emigrate is going to be permitted. That's one version Rashi has from his teachers. Rashi says actually a different interpretation. He says the reason why the golden tooth is forbidden, he says it's not because that it looks different and she's going to be embarrassed, but rather because it's chashuv, it's distinguished, and she might come to show it off, and that's why it's asur. But he says, but the silver one is not chashuv, and she's not going to come to show it off, and therefore she's not going to come take it out of her mouth. So be that as it may, we'll go with the interpretation of his teachers that it's embarrassing, which is actually, as Rashi relates it in his discussion, as we'll see shortly in the Gemara, of either one of these interpretations. Tanya Mochi, similar in the Brisa. B'shal kesef, if it's silver, Diva Kol Mutter, everyone agrees that it's going to be permitted. And Shal Zav, that's where the machlek is, Rebbe Matav Chamaisim, that's where they have the machlek. Now, Amabai, he says, Rebbe, who we just quoted, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shimon Lazar, Kula Svirlu, all these three Tanam hold with the same concept, which is the Chalmidi, the Megani Bay, anything that a woman would be embarrassed by and disgraced by, Lo Yashalach, she's not going to come to show it off. And so we're not concerned she's going to come to carry it. What are these three opinions? So Rebbe is Hadamar, is what we just mentioned, that we're not concerned that she's going to come to take off the false tooth because it's embarrassing. Either that she's missing a tooth or that it's a golden tooth. It looks different. But the point is it's embarrassing. And if it's embarrassing, then Rebbe says that no, she's not going to come to take it out. And therefore Rebbe says permitted. Chacham say it's forbidden because they're going to laugh at her and she can come take it out. Rebbe says no. Ultimately, it's embarrassing. Let's say if she's missing a tooth and she's not going to take it out. So if it's embarrassing, therefore it's permitted to go out with her to Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Eliezer, where do we find he says the same concept? It's not like in the Brisa. Rabbi Eliezer played to bekevelis. He says a woman is exempt, which we actually said in the previous stuff that when he says pater, it actually means muzer lekatchila. She's allowed to go out with a spice bundle, ubitzleicha shabayadin, and it is this flask of balsam. Now we said what's the reason why? He says because what I mean. Is it a masa or a taksha? Either one should be forbidden, either biblically or rabbinically. He says no. Which type of a woman goes out with the spice bundle? A woman has bad body odor. She's not going to show it off. Because it's a disgrace to her. That's the same idea, which she may wear these perfumes because, again, it's a disgraceful thing, just like that she's missing a tooth, just like the golden tooth is, like Rebbe says, is permitted because it's disgraceful. So to Rebbe Eliezer. And so to says Rabbi Shimon Lazar, also the same idea. Tanya Glenda Brisa. Kalalam Rabbi Shimon Lazar, he says, and we quoted this in the previous daf, he says, any ornament that a woman is wearing beneath her cap, for example, beneath her hat, like for example, the woolen cap. The woolen cap is actually worn beneath a hat that a woman wears. So Rabbi Shimon Lazar says, then Yitzhak, a woman could go out with that. Because we're not concerned that she can come to show off her beautiful cap, because she's going to have to uncover her hair, and that's disgraceful for her because the hat is actually makes her hair more beautiful. And she'd have to take it up and they say, oh, whoa, like they're going to see her hair is not well done. So therefore, if it's beneath the hat, she's allowed to go out with it. If it's above the hat, in the Yitzhak, she cannot go out with it. Can then we are concerned if you take it off and show it off to our friends. So again, it's the same idea. She may wear things under her hat because she's not going to take it off to show it off because it's going to be a disgrace for her. So that's the thing that Abai says, these three Tanam all say the same idea, that we're not concerned for Dimel Shalfa Machavir, for things that are going to be a disgrace for the woman. The next halacha, the Mishnah again continue on the same theme about Yoitza, about things that a woman is allowed to go out with into Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos. So it says the Mishnah, Yoitza, a woman could go out with Bisela, with a coin, Sha'alat Sinis. Shemar is going to explain that's a certain type of a wound that a woman could go out with on Shabbos. So too, Habanas Ketanas, the young girls, what they would do is that they would pierce their ears, but they wouldn't give them rings until they got older. Now, so what do they do? But you pierce the ear. If you don't put any jewelry in for a while, it closes up. So they would put in some types of threads or some types of splinters into their ear. So on that says the Mishnah, the young girls, yoitzis bechutin, they could go out with these threads and they could go out and even the splinters in their ears, and that's the chiddush to say that even though it's not really an ornament, it's not adornment, since that's the norm, so it's not considered a mas, it's not considered carrying something unnecessary. So they're allowed to go out like that. So to Arviyos, the Arabic women, that they yitzis ru'ulais, they can go out with, it's on the next stuff, they can go out with, this is the picture, that they can go out with, it refers to the Jewish women of Arabia. They go out ru'ulais, which is the way the Arabian women go out, is they go out their whole, they have that the turban that they cover the burqa, they cover their whole face, and the only thing that's open is their eyes. So again, that's not considered as a masa, because what are you carrying? No, that's considered normal for the women to go out like that. So to umadiyas, so to the Median women, they refer to the Jewish women from Madai, they go out perufais, which is that they're covered with a cloak, and they hang the strap of one end of the cloak by where the neck area is, and they wrap it onto either a stone or to a nut, and that's how they loop it on, that the cloak doesn't fall off from them. The word perefes itself means like karasim, like hooks, which the targum of karasim is purfin. So any garment that you attach to another one is called perifa. So they could go out with the cloak tied on to something on side of them. And really the Mishnah says, the truth is, it's not only Arabian women or these Median women, it's every woman. The sages just spoke about what's normal. In Arabia, that's how they walk out, and in Madai, that's how they walk out with wrapping this garment around them. It's any woman. Now, so too says the Mishnah, Perdefes alo Evan. She could wrap on a stone, meaning if she has the cloak that she's tying around by her neck area, so there's that's how a garment closes with a button. So their buttons could be ala Evan on a stone. You could use a stone as a button, or vala egais or a nut, or vala matbeya on a coin. As long as she doesn't go ahead and wrap it on Shabbos, which I was going to ask, wait a second, in the ratio you just said, that you said that you could be perdefes. You could be perdefes. Why are you saying that you cannot be? The Gemara is going to address that question. But first the Gemara goes to explain the halacha of the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, my tzinas. What's this that you said that a woman could go out with a coin on the tzinas? Says the Gemara, it's bas ara. It's a certain type of a wound which is beneath. Really, this picture would have been ideal to show a foot. On the bottom of the soles of their feet, they have a wound, so they tie on a coin for healing, for medicinal purposes. Says Gemara, Maishna Sela. So why specifically did they use a coin? As the Gemara goes through, what are the characteristics, the qualities of a coin, of a sela, that you're saying specifically they would use that and that she go out with that, and that's considered okay because that's normal for a woman to go out with that for the healing of her foot. Elim, if you think it's because kol mididat kushi malala, whatever is hard is healing for her, and the coin is a silver coin. It's hard and therefore protects the wound on the bottom of the foot from the thorns and from any obstacles on the road. Then says, but why can't you just make an earthenware shard? That's also a hard thing. Why specifically a sella? Now, what are you going to say? No, the reason is because silver has some type of a moisture comes out from it, and that moisture is good for the wound. Says if that's the case, then make a silver plate. Why does it have to be a coin for? That silver plate will also have that moisture that comes out of silver. Or Ella, what are you going to say? No, mishum turasa. It's because of the figure, the form of the coin, which on the coin there's a figure, whatever is engraved in it. Well, that's good for the wound, and it's not the moisture. So the Gemara then pulsa. Then let her make a round piece of wood and just engrave whatever image on it. Why does it have to be specifically a sella? Says the Gemara, Mabai says obviously what you can infer from this, from the Mishnah that specifically spoke about a sella, is because kulu, all of the criterion that we mentioned together, our mamla is what affected for, and therefore specifically a sella, which it's hard, protects the wound. Shuksa, silver promotes moisture on the wound, and it has b'tzurasa, has the image that aids in the healing, and therefore that's why specifically it was a sell. Then the next item mentioned in the Mishnah was habanas yotzis b'chutim. The young girls could go out with when they pierce their ears and they're not buying them jewelry yet, because as my daughter has happened many times that they lose their earring. So we want their ears to be pierced, but because when they get older, then they're going to really start refusing. But they put in these threads, and they can go out with like that on Shabbos. Now, and like we explained from Rashi, because not nasa, it's normal, even though it's not a taksha. But the Gemara brings interestingly that what happened was that Avu de Shmuel, the father of Shmuel, the Gemara brings a few different things, interesting customs that he had. And one of them was Le'shavik lu lebanse. He did not let his daughters go out to a shasarabim, the nafki b'chut, to go out with these threads in their ears. The Gemara is going to explain all these halachas one by one. And I'm going to ask what I mean. That seems to contradict the halacha of the Mishnah. Additionally, he didn't let his daughters gininan gabi hadadi, to sleep near each other, to bunk up together in the same bed. When they're young girls, he didn't let them sleep together in the same bed. So too, va'avalu mikvais, he made for them mikvais, like a real mikvah, which is pools of gathered water, or let's say near the river, that the water from the river would get drawn to a separate pool, and they would immerse themselves in that water over there. And that he would do for them b'yom Nisan, specifically in the summer months, starting from Nisan, from Pesach time. Umapatze, and he also made for them mats b'yom Tishrei, in the winter months, starting from Tishrei by Rosh Hashanah time. Now, the reason for that is because they would immerse themselves in the Euphrates River, and there's mud on the bottom, and if the woman steps in the ground and they get muddy from the mud on the bottom, so that would be a chatzitza between her foot and the ground. So what they did was that they put the mat beneath their feet, that it shouldn't be a chatzitza, so that the mud wouldn't be chatzitza. Now, Rabbeinu Tam, actually, it's a halacha l'maisa too. Taisa brings from Rabbeinu Tam that no, the mats that he made for them in the summer months, which then they would immerse themselves by the river, as we're going to explain on the base why in the summer did they not, and in the winter did they yes, but they made the mats actually standing up as a mechitza, that people shouldn't see them, that they're going to the mikveh in the river, and they can be embarrassed. They're not going to do it appropriately. They can do it very quick because people are watching, and therefore they made these mats for mechitza, so vertical, not horizontal, that they should do a valid tefillah. Now, the Gemara goes to explain all these different things that the father Shmuel did. So the first one was he didn't let his daughters go out to the street with those threads in their pierced ears. So the Gemara, what do you mean? Now we learned the Mishnah that said that the daughters could go out with the threads in their ears. What's the father Shmuel being machmer on his daughters more than the Mishnah? Says the Gemara, the daughters of the father Shmuel, which he had a name, but he was called Abu Shmuel. His son was a very well-known personality. The Tzavainin Hava, his daughters, their threads were colorful. Oh, that's already a status. That's already, they say, wow, look at yours. See, anyone can make anything like fashionable, a fashion statement. And he was concerned that they're going to come to take it off and show it off to their friends, and therefore, usually they used to have just like a regular string. No girls taking that out of the ear. But his daughters had fashionable strings, and therefore he's concerned that they're going to show it off and then carry Daled Amos. Therefore he did not let his daughters go out with that into the street. Next halacha was, he didn't let his daughters sleep together in the same bed. It says the Gemara, let's say that supports Rav Huna, because Rav Huna says, women who rub themselves in a sexual way for the desire of tashmish, that the halacha is getintam and beis pesulis the kahuna, that they're invalid for the kahuna. What does that mean? What does it mean they're valid to the kahuna? So Rashi says it means that woman cannot marry a kohen gadol because she's not really a complete virgin, a complete pasula. Now Rashi wonders, what do you mean? Father Shmuel was after the Churban Beis Hamikdash. There was no kohen gadol in his days. But says Rashi, since that obviously means to say it's done in an inappropriate way, which she doesn't have her basulim all the way, so it's not appropriate to do such a behavior as we see that's invalid for the kohen gadol. Therefore, he didn't want his daughters to do that because then they're together and then they could rub each other. Now, Taisa brings a different interpretation. It's actually not because it would be a problem only for a kohen gadol, because of basulim, actually because of like znus. It's if two women are pleasing each other in an inappropriate way, so that would make her like a zayin on some way, like a harlot, and therefore she actually would be even invalid for a kohen head. But reading there's an A, why didn't the father of Shmuel let them sleep together? Because they're going to come to do inappropriate touch. Says the Gemara, no, it's not a raya. It's not necessarily because you don't like Rav Huna. Savar, the father Shmuel thought the following interesting svar. He said, he doesn't want them to get used to a foreign body, because that's pleasurable, and then they desire a man, and then that's going to cause them to go on different ways. You see how smart a father has to be with the laws of chinuch. You see, he has to think about these types of things. The father's smart; he thinks ahead. Says, "What's wrong with girls living together?" Yes, but guess what's going to happen? They're going to have the desire, and therefore that's going to cause them to then want men, which would be problematic if they're not married, and therefore that's the reason why he didn't want them to sleep together. Additionally, we said va'avlu mikveh b'yom nisan. In the summer months, he made for them a pool of water, what we call a mikvah, which the rest of the year they went to the river, but in the summer months he made for them a separate mikvah. Says why would he make them specifically a mikvah in the summer months? Why? Says Gemara, say Rav, this supports Rav, because Rav says mitra b'may Rava, when there's rain in the west, meaning referring to Eretz Yisrael, Sahada Rabbah, a great testimony is Paras. Pras is the Euphrates River. The Euphrates River will testify in Bavel that it rained in Eretz Yisrael. What does that mean? How could you know from the Euphrates that it rained in Eretz Yisrael? What happens is that the water from Eretz Yisrael runs down into Bavel, and that increases the Euphrates from the rainwater of Eretz Yisrael. Now, actually, Taisa disagrees with that, what Rashi is saying, because he says Bavel is on the east of Eretz Yisrael. All the rivers flow, so Taisa says, from east to west. It's not going from west to east. So therefore, Rabbi Tam says a different interpretation. It says, how did they know it rained in Eretz Yisrael? Is because the water was backing up, going back into the wrong way, into the Euphrates behind it, and by that increase in Eretz Yisrael, they realized that it must have rained in Eretz Yisrael. But be that as it may, they were able to tell from the Euphrates River in Bavel that it rained in Eretz Yisrael. So people in Bavel knew that it rained in Eretz Yisrael. They were happy for their brothers in Eretz Yisrael. It's always a concern regarding the rain. Now, the father Shmuel obviously held like Rav, that he held that the Euphrates gets bigger by the blessing of the rain in Eretz Yisrael. So therefore why? So the Gemara explains. So why would that be a reason? Why can't you table in the river like you do all year round, and the summer that you're going to have to go ahead and table in a separate mikvah? Because the father Shmuel held shaloi that it shouldn't be, or as Rashi has to give to Shema, maybe it's going to be yirbuha noitvim. Noitiv means what drips. Maybe you can have an increase of the rain al hazoichalin, on the flowing water, which is the spring water. What is this referring to? So both Rashi and Taisus go through it at great length to explain what we're discussing over here. There's Mishnah Masechtas Mikvais in the 5th parak that says like this: Hazeichelin. We'll say the terms because it's important to understand the concepts over here. Although it's a small part of the Gemara, but it's still an integral part to comprehend. The Zeichelin is the flowing waters. That the Mishnah says is kemayin, is like a spring. We'll explain shortly from a brisa what this Mishnah means to say. But the Zeichelin, the flowing, is like a spring. Vanoitfen, and the dripping, which is the rain, is kemikveh, is like gathered water, which the word mikveh comes from kavli, as we're going to shortly explain. A brisa in Teres Karim explains. The pasuk says, Ach mayin. However, a spring, Ubar mikveh mayim, in the pit of gathered water, that's the places where you could go and toivel and immerse things. Now, the Brisa says, you would think, let's say you fill up water on your shoulder, and you go and you start pouring into a pit, and you want to make a mikveh, you would think that would be tar, which this is one of the basic concepts everyone knows about mikvahs, that mayim she'uvim is possible. What's mayim she'uvim? It's drawing water. Well, let's make a mikveh. What's the big deal? Mikveh is so hard. You got to make a mikveh. Big deal. Let's get water. Let's pour it into the pool. No. Because the pasuk says, mayin, it compares it to a spring. Just like a spring is bidei shemayim, is natural, so too a mikveh has to be natural. It cannot be that it was man-made. Oh, so wait a second. If you're comparing a mikveh to a mayim, so maybe you'll say, just like a spring, it's mitar b'zoichalin. A spring is always flowing, and you're allowed to toivel in there, as the pasuk says, a mayim. So just like a mayim could be flowing, so too a mikveh, you would think, could be flowing water. Like imagine a wave pool. So that's what the pasuk says. No, ach mayim. Only, ach is exclusionary terminology, only a spring. What does that mean to say? That only a spring is purifying if it's flowing. A mikveh is only going to purify if it's what's called ashbayrin. What's ashbayrin? Ashbayrin is that it's kavu v'kaimi. Kavu, it means say it's gathered. Gathered means say it's not dispersing, it's not flowing away. It's all in one place, which would exclude if, let's say, you're immersing kalim when it's flowing, like we say, like a wave pool, then actually it wouldn't be a valid tefillah. The bar mikveh has to be that it's kavu v'kaimi, it's in one place. But if it's flowing, then it's only going to be, meaning if it's a spring, then it's going to be time when it's flowing, because it could go from a higher point to a low point, like all other rivers, but not by a mikveh. Oh, so now here, this is the point. In the days of Nisan, in the summer months, which the rivers get bigger from the rainwater that rained all through the winter and from the melting snow, so we're concerned like this. Maybe there's going to be what's called yir b'hanoitfen ala zeichel, and maybe there's going to be more rainwater than spring water, which is going to be an increase from the rain. So what's the problem with that? So then the zeichelin, the live spring water, is going to be nullified in the rainwater. So now this river you cannot consider anymore as a mayin, as a spring, to purify as it's flowing, because there's more rainwater. So you have to qualify this as a mikveh. The problem is it's flowing, and the mikveh is not purified when it's flowing. That's why the father Shmuel said, I'm going to make for my daughters mikvahs in the summer months, that it'll be a pool in one place. We won't have that concern of yirba nitrin al ha zeichel. Now, Tyson wonders just a very interesting concept. He says, wait a second, what's this whole concern? You tell me it's going to rain so much that there's going to be a majority of rainwater over the river waters, and the problem is the river waters are flowing, and you have, let's say 1/3 of it is river waters. You have 2/3 of it rainwater. It's going to rain so much. So it's going to be rainwater and not river water, and if it's flowing, it's invalid. But Tyson, as it's raining, every drop should become bottle. As we have a Gemara now by the Zohar that says if you're pouring yain nesach into a bar all day, it's going to be bottle. Because every drop, bottle. So who cares that it rains? Bottle. Says Taisus, no. He says actually that halacha bottle is only up until a majority. Once it's a majority, you have a halacha concept called chayzim and neir. Then it says no. Now they all combine. They're always there. It's a recessive gene. As soon as you get a majority, boom, they all combine, and therefore if you do have a majority of yain nesach, it actually would invalidate, and therefore here it's going to become invalidated because of the rainwater. So therefore, says the Gemara, now we understand the halacha. He made mikvahs because the rivers are majority rainwater, but one cannot become tar in rainwater that flows, and it's going to be majority rainwater. That's why in the summer months he was concerned. But in the winter months, there's no such a problem, because it didn't rain the whole summer, and therefore then it's going to be okay. But says the Gemara, Opliga, this halacha of the father Shmuel actually disagrees with his son, the Shmuel. Because the Amar Shmuel says, Nahara, a river, mekepe. What's mekepe? Mekepe means from the edge, which is, the edge of it is on the bottom, from its source, is mivrich. That's where a river gets blessed. Mean to say, the majority of the water of a river is not from rainwater, rather it's from the source, which is the rock beneath it. And therefore, even in the summer months, would be permitted, even though it rains so much. Now, Taisus wanted to say, wait a second. We see with our own eyes that the rivers get greater because of the rain. How could Shmuel say that no, never concerned? We don't have his father's concern because it comes from the source. What do you mean? Come on, we see it's low. We see the Kinneret. We suddenly it's rain. We see it's like went up by 60-70%. So that says Taisus, you're right, but the Gemara Tainis tells us that you don't have a handbreadth of water that comes from on top that then Hashem doesn't make a 2 handbreadths from the source, from the bedrock, come out. And therefore, it's going to be permitted. And Rabbeinu Tam says, Allah is like Shmuel, and actually Taisa brings it, which in halacha we do rely on, according to many, to immerse in rivers, even if it's got so great because of the rainwaters, we don't have that concern. Because we hold like Shmuel, that majority of the river's waters are going to be from its own natural sources, and therefore it's going to be kosher even when it's flowing, because even though it had so much rainwater, no matter how much rainwater you have double that amount of the river itself. But says the Gemara, interestingly, that upliga di day, but Shmuel himself disagrees adidei on his own self, because we have a different teaching of Shmuel that contradicts himself. Because the Amar Shmuel says, Ein hamayim mitarin, the water will not purify a person or a vessel that's immersed in it, bezoichelin, when it's flowing, meaning, rather you have to draw the water into a pool, into a mikveh, that it's stagnant water, and then immerse in that mikveh. The only time you could go in the river is ela pras b'yom Tisha B'Av, is in the Euphrates only during the winter months, because then the rain has stopped. And then you have a majority of flowing waters, and then it's going to have a halachic status of a mayin, of a spring, on the river that's flowing. But one thing you see from Shmuel himself is that obviously he holds that it does increase from the rainwater, and therefore the rest of the year it actually would be forbidden. So he contradicts himself, because he just said before that, no, it's always okay to go in the river, because no matter how much rainwater it's going to have from its own source, we see that Shmuel, he contradicts his own self. Now we continue. We mentioned the Mishnah that Pardefes alo Evan, the women that we said had the unusual modes of dress, that we said that still that's considered malbush, and we said the Arabian women could go out ruulais, and we said the median woman, which we said really it's every woman, could go out perufas, which we said that means that you're wrapping the garment onto some type of a button. And you can go out with that on Shabbos. You just can't initially put on, you can't wrap on the stone, the nut, and the coin initially on Shabbos. Wait a second, says the Gemara, V'amar Reisha, but you said in the Reisha, Pardefes, that she could wrap it. Meaning, as Rashi points out, that was most definitely referring to initially to be done on Shabbos, that when we said Pardefes, that you could do that initially, because if it's talking about that you had wrapped it from before Shabbos, meaning you had put on the stone, the nut, or the coin from before Shabbos, and we're just saying that you could go out like that, but already said Midyas Perufas. We said the Midyas could go out Perufas, so that we know. When then you tell me you could be Pardefes, ala Evim, ala Egz, ala Mabeya, obviously I mean to say that you could initially do the initial buttoning to tie it on Shabbos. So how you tell me that, but you can't do it on Shabbos? That's obviously what we're saying, that you could do it on Shabbos. So you're right. Amabai says, but Sefer, the end of the Mishnah says, Loi Tifrif, that you cannot go initially do that on Shabbos. That's talking about specifically Asan Lamadbeya. That's referring explicitly to a coin. A coin is muktzah. That's something that you can't move, and therefore, because the laws are muktzah, you can't say, okay, let's use the coin. I'll put on the coin, and that's how I'll wrap on Shabbos. No, because it's muktzah. The other things that are not muktzah, which they discuss what's in between the stone and the coin, but they talk about that there's halachic differences regarding that as the laws are muktzah, and therefore they say that regarding the coin is what we're saying, that that's what you can. But you're right, you could initially wrap it on Shabbos, and actually we'll see from the next Gemara's question, which ends off the daf, that even how far does that go? Boyabai says, Isha, woman, Maushatar, what's halacha? Could she use subterfuge? Could she do a trick? And what's she going to do? You just told me that not only could you walk out with it wrapped like that, that's not considered masa. You could even initially take a nut, tie it onto your garment, and use it as a button. As long as you're not doing any malacha to do that, you could do it as a wrap. It's not considered masa. It's a way of itzah. And we said only a coin you can't. What could she do? Could she be b'tifal eggs? Could she wrap on a nut? Her son lives across the street. He wants nuts. He's craving that hazelnut. Oh, ma, those chestnuts you make, ma, I really could use some of that. So her son wants it on Shabbos. What's the halacha? He wants to eat it. Could she go ahead and wear her garment, pedufais, wrap it on, and carry it across the street? So the Gemara says, this question is Tiboy Lamandama Marimin. You could ask it according to the one that says you could generally use subterfuge, and Tiboy Lamandama Emarimin, you could use it, you could ask the question according to the one that says generally you cannot use subterfuge, which this is a machlekes later on, as we'll learn Daf Kaf and Aleph. The Mishnah that describes over there, when there's a fire, so we're saying you could save garments from the fire. There's machlekes, how many? Remeir says you could wear as many garments as you want to, even 10 articles of clothing. One, it's like people when they go on the airplane and they don't want to put the luggage, so they wear the sweater, the jacket, the coat, the scarf, the gloves, everything, just not to, that we can wear, and what you're wearing is not included. So from the fire to Remeir says, you can even wear 10 garments one another as long as you're wearing it. Rebbe says no, 18 garments like you would normally wear during the weekday, not more than that. They're not letting you come onto the plane with ski coats and whatever, everything. No, whatever you normally wear. So says the Gemara, which that's the subterfuge, which obviously, wait a second, normally wearing is what you normally wear. What you're wearing more is obviously haram, just that you could get out of carrying this out of the burning house. Says the Gemara, you could ask her according to both. Why? You could ask her according to the one that holds that generally you could use the trick because that's b'tleika, that's by a fire. There we say that Rameir says if we're not going to let you take out the clothing wearing 20 garments, you might come to extinguish it. Or your whole wardrobe's going on fire. I just spent $1,000 for this suit. What do you mean? I'm wearing 20 suits to get out of here because if not, he might come to put it out. But over here in the case we're discussing, if you don't let the woman carry out the nut to her little son, well, that's not puking. She's not going to come to carry out and she's oh, you don't let me do this or wrap it around? I'm just going to carry it across the street. No, it's not something like losing everything in the fire. So since it's not of a necessity, maybe we don't let you go ahead and do that haram. Or you can ask the question the other way too. You can say, according to the one that says there by the fire, that we don't let you do that trick of wear 30 articles of garments. That's bitleika. That's by a fire. Why? There, wearing extra garments, which is a masa, it's a masa because you're not really wearing an article of clothing, but it's normal to carry like that. It's really hitzah de'iraisa because when people sell garments, they wear it to show it off. So for hitzah, it's considered a bona fide hitzah. So therefore, since it's a biblical masa, so therefore we don't let you carry it out even though you're trying to save in the fire. But over here, it's not the normal way of carrying like this. When you take a nut, if it's considered a violation of Haitzah, you don't usually carry with your lapel, this nice thing that no one ever used on their suits, this little hole, and wrap it around the nut. That's not normally how you carry it. So I would say, okay, it's not really the regular Haitzah. And together with the fact that you're doing a trick where really wrapping your perufis, you're wrapping your garment like that, maybe I would say it's okay. Take her, says the Gemara, let it stand. The question remains unresolved. Something that we spoke about in today's daf and Shabbos Daf Samachei was we spoke about the halach of the Mishnah. We said that a woman could go out with some types of moich, some types of wads of fabric. She'd go out with in her ear, she'd go out with it in her sandal, she'd go out with it for her nida. So regarding the first two of in her ear and in her sandal, we said that it has to be tied on. Now the Gemara thought to say that the same thing would be for Hanida also, but then the Gemara says no, you don't need to, because since it's disgusting, even as the Gemara concluded, if it even has a handle, it doesn't make a difference. It's disgusting. If it drops, she's not going to carry it, and therefore that's okay, even though you don't tie it on. And then the Gemara says questionable, which we saw Rabbi Yochanan held like that if it's mahudik, if it's fastened, even if it's not tied on, it's also permitted to go out with. Again, we're not concerned it's going to fall, and then you're going to come to carry it. Then we had the halach of the Mishnah that said that she could go out with peppercorn, which that's for bad breath, and begalgal of melech, a clump of salt, that's for some type of medicinal purposes for the teeth. As long as you don't put it initially on Shabbos, you go out with that on Shabbos, which that is actually the halacha. We had in the Mishnah machlokes regarding a false tooth. Are you allowed to go out with that on Shabbos? Again, obviously it doesn't mean the regular false teeth that are in your mouth because you're not going to have the concern that you're going to come to take it out. But if let's say you just put it in and it comes in and out like some type of dentures, so then we had a machlokes. So the Gemara qualified, however, that that's specifically of gold. But if it's silver, then everyone agrees it's going to be permitted because that looks just like the other teeth, and then we don't have the concern over there. Then we had Abaya said they had these three Tanoim, Rabbi, and we have Rabbi Eliezer, and we have Rabbi Shimon Elazar. They all hold the same concept that midi de megani, something that's disgraceful, she's not going to come to carry it, and therefore we don't have any concern for the laws of Eitzah and Shabbos. That of Rabbi was that of the Shein Shel Zahav, a golden tooth, which he said is permitted. Well, although the Chacham said we're concerned she's going to come to take it out, which again Rashi learned not like his teacher for that reason, that it's chashiv, because they come to show it off. And Rabbi says chashiv, she's not going to show off her tooth; it's going to show she's missing a tooth. But be that as it may, there he said it's mutter because it's embarrassing. Rabbi Eliezer says she's allowed to go out with the flask of balsam, not like the other opinion the Chacham said she might come to show it off. It's for bad body odor. She's not showing off that thing. And also Rabbi Shimon Elazar, which was that whatever is beneath the cap, she's not going to take off, and therefore it's permitted to wear it because she's not going to show off. It's going to be embarrassing for her here. Then we went to the next Mishnah again, continuing on this theme regarding what a woman could go out with on Shabbos. We said she could go out with a coin, specifically we mentioned that, on that wound, which we said that why specifically a coin? Because it has three criteria. Because or else it could be other things. A, it's hard. 2, it provides moisture. and 3, it has a certain form. Additionally, we said they could go out with these threads and these twigs, these splinters in their ears. It's considered the norm. And also we said that the Arabian women could go out with the burqa, and the median women could go out with perufais, which is wrapped, which the Mishnah said 3 different cases, on stone, and on a nut, and on a coin. Now, when we said in the Mishnah, but she cannot do that like a tchila b'Shabbos, that was specifically on the coin, because the law is a muktzah. But yeah, all the other things we say proof is you could even do that on Shabbos, and you could wrap on the stone and the nut. Now, what's interesting is the father Shmuel had 3 different customs that the Gemara quotes. One is that he didn't let his daughters go out with the threads in their ears. Why not? Because they were colorful, and then they might come to show that off, and they might come to carry that and show Sarah. He also didn't let them sleep together as young girls, not necessarily because like the halacha of Ravuna, that makes them like some type of a snus, but simply because he doesn't want them to get used to a foreign body, which then might make them to want to have some type of forbidden relationships. Additionally, in the summer months, he made for them mikvahs. Why? Why in the winter time he let them immerse themselves in the Euphrates River? Is because he didn't want that there should be more nightfin, which is the rainwater, because you have all the runoff from the winter. Now, you have all that in the summer, all that rainwater that just had the increase. That's going to be more rainwater than the zeichlin, than the flowing water of the river itself. And the problem with that is because then it's flowing, and flowing doesn't work by a mikvah, and therefore you would have that problem. Now, we said that the father Shmuel disagrees with his son Shmuel, because Shmuel says, no, you're never going to have that concern of more rainwater, because mikipe mivrach, you're always going to have more of the river water, and therefore it's always going to be permitted, which on some level we rule like that, where you allow immersion in certain circumstances in the river. But then we said that Shmuel himself actually disagrees with himself, because he himself said you cannot purify something in flowing river water unless it's the Euphrates in the Tishrei. Why only Tishrei? Because in Nisan, then you're going to have the problem with the rainwater, so Shmuel himself contradicts his own teaching. But we said that we ended up the Daf with a question, what's the halacha with a woman? Could she use harama to wrap on a nut? Meaning her son wants the nut across the street, could she wrap on that? Which we said you're allowed to wrap on Shabbos, but what's if she's really doing it just to carry? So the Gemara says that enters the general halachic discussion regarding harama, is subterfuge permitted? And we already had this machlekes once before in the laws of Shabbos. Says the Gemara, no, even that machlekes, we could ask it on either one of the opinions. According to the one that says generally you could use harama, maybe it's over there specifically by fire, because the Rosh are going to come to do the Issa D'Oraisa of Kibri. And that's because it's a Bahala. But and over here, you're not going to come to take a nut to do Hitzah D'Oraisa, maybe we don't let you. And even according to the one that says generally don't allow harama, maybe that's only over there because that's the biblical violation, because you're doing it the Derech Hitzah. But over here, it's not the derech, it's not normally how you carry a nut. Maybe I would say that it would be permitted because it's not the derech, and technically it's permitted that you're allowed to wrap, and if we allow harama. So the Gemara take a list, and the Gemara does not resolve that question if that's permitted or not, which actually in halacha, generally as we do in these type of takers, that when it comes to biblical law, like Rosh Hashanah, we say it's usher. When it comes to like a karmel, it's rabbinic law, then we go the kula, and this make it, if it's going to be permitted. Thank you to any time.